Hi, my name's Carla Gilardi, and about 2 years ago, you probably wouldn't have found me laying on the ground, just enjoying nature. I was usually on a computer screen, working, not thinking about much else, and completely disconnected from nature. And then nature decided to have a little fun and play a game of Find Yourself, which started off my spiritual journey. And I never would have thought a spiritual journey would have gone the way it has, with all these things that people say are not real, appearing everywhere, and experiencing things that, well, we just didn't believe before. I want to just say thank you to all the people who have shared messages over the years, those who have done it recently, those who have done it long ago. Alan Watts, Dr. Dyer, even Spina, and many others who, on my journey, shared messages that have been helpful, useful, and allowed to kind of get through it more effectively, especially during times when one is lost in these journeys and they just feel like it's just never going to end or something else. And in all honesty, it's nice to sometimes hear a message that resonates very strongly. And they usually just come in that moment of synchronicity when you're just not expecting something, but there you go. Somebody has shared a message that resonates exactly the way you needed it to at that moment. What's interesting is even as I am laying here speaking, the grass is moving in ways that I wasn't expecting it to. Every time I pause and reshoot, I haven't really moved my arms or my body, but the grass has decided to change where it is. It's actually more within the frame than when I started, and some of the other grasses have left the frame, which is just stunning to see in just a few moments. It's not even been that long. But even nature interacts with us in just ways so many people know it. This isn't new. This isn't groundbreaking. This isn't anything that isn't spoken about. But when we have our own journeys, unique to us, personal to us, it just affects us in a way that is for us. And it's great to hear someone's journey, but it's different when it's your own. And how you go through that journey is yours. Nobody can tell you what's right, what's wrong, how it is, how it isn't. But there are some things that help us find our authenticity that I'd like to share over the next videos that I'll be creating, as well as other downloads that I've gotten and information that has been quite helpful at times, in all honesty. And so it's been a good journey so far the last 2 years, but it hasn't been an easy journey. I realized my journey actually started with listening to Dr. Dyer's How to Be a No Limit Person back in 2018. I had been listening to Sarah Blakely interviews around how Dr. Dyer's videos reshaped her youth, and while she listened to them with her father and so on, and it ended up making me just want to listen to these tapes. The first time I listened to the No Limit Person, I realized what a neurotic I really was, and how miserable I really was, and how miserable I was making myself. But it made me start looking at different books and different things, and started to find a different way. In 2019, around April, I started having the desire to talk about my spiritual experiences that I'd had in the past. Something I'd never really spoke to anybody about, not my parents, not really anybody. I'd always just kind of ignored them or just taken them a little bit for granted. I understood that they had purpose, but I couldn't really share them. It wasn't for me to share really at the time. And part of it was fear, part of it was just it wasn't time to really share these things. But in April of 2019, I just began needing to speak about it, opening up about it. And then around mid 2019, I had a little bit of information that came in. One of those moments where all that information is just there and you just know something, but you don't know why you know it, but you do. And it was just, you will be going on a spiritual journey. And towards the end of 2019, I started having these visions constantly. And it was thousands of people lining up on the side of a river. And it was rocky. And they were all coming to this man in the river. This man in the river was dressed in a white gown. It's a bit of a Messiah-looking situation, which I wouldn't really call it that. It's more like looking at something that just a mix of interpretations, I would call it today, for one to kind of understand something about something that they're clueless about. And these thousands of people were coming to this man in the river. And in the center of the man's chest was this orb of light. And as people came by, you could see their orbs of lights in their heart were shadowed. And as they embraced this man, the light went from his heart to their heart. And all this shadow went away. And I thought that was the vision. And it just kept being there. Every time I'd close my eyes, I'd be seeing this vision constantly for weeks. And finally, I paused to really take a look at it. And I realized that there were emotions. And every single person was so filled with emotions, traumas. They had gone through cataclysmic events, famine, wars, natural disasters. They'd gone through a lot, and that's an understatement to put it as. But as they came and embraced this man, the light went from his heart to theirs, and suddenly all the emotions they carried were just gone. And they were in this state of peace, like nothing had happened before. And I didn't quite understand it. I didn't understand how one could go from all this emotional state, trauma, everything, all the way to suddenly cleansed and cleared and free of everything they had experienced prior. Around July of 2021, I ended up having this dream. I won't go into the dream, but I ended up feeling like I'd lost the most important person in my life, this love of mine, like my soulmate or something along those lines. It was just such an intense love. And I woke up screaming in pain, just in absolute agony and pain. And after that point, my energy just started depleting. By the time November 2021 came about, I was just depleting. I would have no energy. I'd wake up all excited, energetic, ready to go do my work. And by the time I walked 5 meters, I wanted to crawl back to bed. I just had no energy left. It was like seeing my gas tank go from full to empty in just a few moments. And I would ask, what is causing this? And I would be shown, the first time I asked, I was shown this hole on the ground. And it looked like a bottomless pit, and it couldn't be filled. The next time I asked, again, the same type of imagery, a bottomless pit, and like leaves kind of going in, some dirt going in, it couldn't be filled. And then I asked again, and months later, and I was shown a black hole in space with energy getting sucked out. And that was it. I still didn't understand it. A while later, I asked again, and then the message came. It's a hunger that cannot be quenched. And that's kind of where it ended. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to look at it, and it just stayed there. I was just drained. My sister came to visit around July of 2022, and she asked to do a little healing on me, and I was apprehensive, but then I finally just gave in and allowed her to do a healing session. She practices Reiki and other things, and so at the time I really didn't believe in it, but I just let it be. She spent about 20 minutes working on me. And at the end, she let me know that all my chakras had been inactive or blocked, and she had worked to activate them and get the energy flowing. And then she said there was a massive hole in my root chakra letting all my energy out, and that she had sewed it, and that I would be okay, but she didn't know how long it would last, the sewing would last. And I shared with her how I had seen these holes, but I just didn't know what they were when I was asking what's causing my energy drain. And a few hours later, I realized I'd gone upstairs to the second floor of my house, which I hadn't gone to in months because I just didn't have the energy to get up the stairs. And the next day I was like bouncing like Tigger. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you for all the help. Like, I just couldn't have imagined that a short 20-minute session would have allowed my energy to start coming back, and I would start living again a little bit better. But my mind was foggy, and I started seeing this shadow everywhere. And then I started hearing all these negative thoughts that I realized were not mine. And this went on till around September. And I finally said to a friend, hey, I don't know what's going on. I'm just irritable all the time. I see this shadow everywhere, and I don't want to be around anybody or be in my house. And he talked about feng shui and some other things, and then asked me, would you like to get a clearing? I said, sure. That sounds great. If you think he'll help, let's do it. And so, on November 5th, my friend calls me up. And, I wasn't expecting much. But he then asked me to say a couple of words. Please heal me of all sickness and disturbance, which I then repeated. And it lasted less than 5 minutes, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like, he hasn't done anything. But then I realized, as I got out of bed and started walking to the door, my friend asked, how are you feeling? And I say to him, you know what? I feel silence. I don't hear anything anymore. It's just silence in my head. And then I walked out to the living room, and I didn't see the shadow anymore, and I didn't feel this negativity and this urge to leave my house and exit or anything else. And I just started thanking him. I just couldn't believe that such a short moment could change so much within what one was experiencing. It just wasn't something that I thought was in the realm of possibility until that moment. In January of 2023, I ended up going on a spiritual journey, apparently. I got on a plane from the US to Dubai, and then in Dubai, I spent a few hours, went to a hotel, went to bed. Everything was just amazing. It was an amazing trip to travel, and I was heading to Malaysia. So I get to the airport in Dubai, and man, I just walk and walk and walk because I didn't realize there was a train at the lower levels. And so I walk maybe almost 2 miles. It's a very long airport. And there I am with my hand luggage and my backpack, and heading over to the flight where it's going to be taking off. And I get into the plane, I get in, and so I start relaxing. We take off, and you know, maybe a couple of hours into the flight, I start feeling just a tension in my forehead and in the back of my head and at the top. And so I start doing some breathing exercises. And while doing these breathing exercises, I end up having a vision. And it's like I see this shadow, and it looks like an outline of me. And above the head is an orb of light. And this orb of light is just extremely bright. And suddenly it just bursts into flames. And I just, at the time, I had no idea what it was. I just felt it was demonic because of my former Catholic beliefs, and it bursting into fire. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it must be demonic. And it freaked me out. And at that moment, I started getting this information about existence, about dimensions, and where we experience life, and all these different things, and free will, and it was just a massive amount of information that just came in all at once. And as the plane was landing, I just had a little message: you are now in Islam. I thought to myself, am I going to be turning Muslim? And I got no response. So I was like, oh, okay, I have no idea what that is. Then the next day I go see my friend who did my clearing, and he goes, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And I go, you know, I'm feeling this deep peace from submission. And he kind of looks at me and chuckles and said, you know what that is? What the definition of the name for that is? He goes, I go, no. He goes, it's been in Islam. Islam's definition is peace from submission. Then after that, for quite a while, I just started having these, it was from the plane ride until around the 27th of February, I was in this state of just feeling this absolute immense amount of love. And it was like, I didn't feel hungry unless it was time to eat. I could dance for hours without feeling exhausted or tired. I mean, I was perspiring, drinking water like crazy. I was probably going through like 5 to 6 liters of water a day. I've never drank so much water in my life. And during this time, it was just massive amounts of insights coming in at the time that just didn't make any sense to me. I felt I was completely insane. I saw entities and experienced all sorts of other things. And it was like looking at time itself, experiencing life, but then seeing all these paths, knowing where people are on their paths and what's going on, where they're going, if they're off track. It was just knowing things about people and just experiencing life in a way that I just cannot express effectively. I just felt this immense joy. Just funny enough, my body wasn't connected to it. It was just my consciousness. And everybody else saw me as a miserable, sad person that just wasn't getting any fun or anything. And there I am internally just feeling like I'm grinning from ear to ear. But my body was so disconnected from it. And it was just like that until it just turned off one moment. And when it did, I went from perfectly healthy to suddenly mucus and gunk getting into my nasal passages and my left lung, and I started coughing out gunk, and I was just sick. And I'm like, it was like somebody gave me a spiritual punch, and I had a lights out moment. And I just finished a meal with somebody, and I get into my grab, and I feel there's a presence behind me, and I look behind me, and there's a goal. And I'm thinking, why is there a goal behind me? It was just freaking me out. And that was the experience that I will call tongues, just from descriptions from the book, Man, the Temple of the Living God. Though I really don't know what one might call it or how to express it beyond that. But that was the beginning of my journey. It was getting a glimpse of a path that I was working on, a path I had no idea even existed until that moment in this lifetime. But I left understanding there was no real time. Everything was here and now, and that we were just experiencing all these different possibilities in different ways. As I'm making this video, it's really been almost 2 years since those events happened. Next month will mark the 2-year mark, and I have traveled quite a bit throughout Asia Pacific and gone to Peru and experienced lots of different things in different places. And at the end of it all I can truly say is that I know nothing. But it is fun getting little glimpses and learning and getting little downloads and experiencing life and the synchronicities and learning terms in different things from the universe, from source. And it's just magical. If you would have told me that this is what living spiritually is like, I would have probably thought it was a lot of nonsense. But after experiencing it for the last 2 years, mostly really in the last 6 months, it's just been a lot more submission. Just settling my ego and just learning to come from a place that is more pure within myself. Just understanding that the purpose of life is not what we teach, not what we're being shown. And it's just beautiful, the simplicity of life, truly what it is. I mean, this journey's not been easy. I haven't been able to keep a job in 3 years, and I haven't really worked in over 2 years. And I've not been really allowed to make money. I was able to get a job for a little bit, and then when I accepted the next part of my journey, I lost the job. And I understood that it was to make time for what was coming, the changes and the rapid changes that have been going through, the rapid clearing, the purifications, other things. And I couldn't imagine how many others are like me going through this right now. It's just not easy, but it's worthwhile. It's beautiful. The experiences, the changing in perspectives, seeing multiple perspectives and experiences all at once at times, and finding yourself, seeing from the consciousness of someone else, looking at yourself and seeing what they're experiencing from you. And it's like, how can you be in two places at once, experiencing from yourself and from somebody else at the same time? But with all that being said and done, you just can't express it until you experience it, until it's given to you. It's just patience, because we really don't know what it is. And each little moment brings its own presence, its own synchronicity. And then you start realizing that there are no good moments and bad moments. They're all just neutral and wonderful in their own way. And you get to experience them in one way or another, or always. You are free to experience every possibility at times. And it's absolutely magnificent to see all the different versions of a moment with all the different energies and perspectives and feelings and emotions. And you just realize life has just so much more to give than what we think about most of the time. And then you have moments like this where you go on a trip. You have no idea how you're going to get through it, but it's where you're meant to be. And everything just moves forwards, and you connect with moments that are just so beautiful. But it's not easy. And one may start looking at all the things we don't have, but all you're asked to look at is the moment. You realize that in every moment you have everything you need all the time. And if you don't have something you think you need, you probably didn't need it. And that's the whole point of the experience. Because then it opens you up to connect to others and experience things in ways that you just couldn't imagine. But you first have to get out of this moment of feeling like you don't have and just go to the state of thriving, realizing that at every moment you have the abundance. The future videos that I want to share and talk about will be about just lessons in thriving, abundance, how we're really just spoiled children. You know, a lot of people don't like to think this, but no matter how grateful we truly are, we really have no clue to what the gratitude that we really would need to have to accept all of that we're being given at every moment. It's almost an impossibility. And so all we can really do is just accept we are spoiled children. It doesn't mean spoiled as in, you know, we're learning to not take it for granted is so difficult, because every breath is part of it, and everything, every moment, there's not a single moment, not an iota of an atom is not placed in its perfect place for what we are experiencing. Not a flicker of light, not a placement of a hair, all of it perfectly curated for us in every moment of every day. And yet here we are complaining about the little things. It's just not the way I want it. And even after knowing all this, I have my moments where I'm like complaining. I go, and it takes me a moment to go, oh my goodness, how am I complaining about this? And I sound like Dr. Wayne Dyer in his in his audio tape of the I had to go look that up because it's one of those audios that I wanted to share, and I forget the name, but his audio is Divine Love, and it's absolutely just a beautiful piece to share and go through, and it just helps you reconnect to your heart in such an amazing manner. So all I will say is thank you to Dr. Wayne Dyer. I know he's passed, but he's also here. That moment where he's talking about his experience in a bathroom, and he realized how ungrateful he's been. Really, I can resonate in such a way at this point at times, and I think we all can. And I love how he brings a message down that we can all relate to. And I will finish this with just saying thank you, even to RJ Spina. I've been looking at some of his videos lately, and he has helped me connect a little deeper. And if you haven't, check out his meditations for sending love to the world. They're absolutely wonderful, and they connect very deeply. So if you haven't, check it out, and I will try to remember to put a link in the video for it. But this is my first video, and if you've watched it through the end, thank you, and blessings to everybody. Thank you. Take care.